Let's start news segment now, and I have breaking news for you. Many members of our community probably already know that today Russian President Vladimir Putin had a phone conversation with the French President Emmanuel Macron, first time in almost 3 years. So we have obviously reports about it on all Russian media outlets. Let me give you some details about this conversation. So Russian President Vladimir Putin held a phone conversation first time in almost 3 years with the French President Emmanuel Macron. This was reported by Kremlin press service in a conversation with his French counterpart. The Russian leader noted that the Ukrainian conflict is a direct consequence of their policies of the Western states. We have a quote from the statement. Putin recalled the Ukrainian conflict is a direct consequence of their policies of the Western countries, which for many years have ignored Russia's security interests, created an anti-Russian foothold in Ukraine, and condoned the violence of rights of the Russian-speaking residents. The Kremlin reports that Russian president as saying Western countries, the head of the state noted, are pursuing a policy of prolonging military action, feeding the Kiev regime with various modern weapons. He also emphasized that the settlements in Ukraine must be comprehensive, eliminate the root causes, and be based on realities on the ground. Putin, the Kremlin notes, confirmed their fundamental approaches to possible agreements, which must be comprehensive and long-term, provide for the elimination of the root causes of the Ukrainian crisis, and be based on new territorial realities. On the conflict, so presidents spoke not just about Ukraine, but also about Middle Eastern crisis. Presidents also discussed the situation in the Middle East in the context of Iran-Israel conflict and U.S. strikes on Iran's facilities. They noted the importance of respecting Iran's right to peaceful nuclear energy and fulfilling its obligations under the Treaty on the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons, including cooperation with the IAEA. Putin and Macron spoke in favor of resolving the crisis around Iran and other conflicts in the region through diplomacy. The leaders spoke in favor of resolving the crisis around the Iranian nuclear program, as well as resolving other contradictions in the Middle East exclusively through political and diplomatic means, the statement said. The leaders of the two countries also agreed to continue contacts for the purpose of possible coordination of positions on their settlements in the Middle East, and also noted the special responsibility of the Russian Federation and France as a permanent members of the UN Security Council in maintaining peace and security. Vladimir Putin and Emmanuel Macron noted the special responsibility of Russia and France as a permanent members of the UN Security Council in maintaining peace and security, including in the Middle East region, as well as the preserving the global nuclear non-proliferation regime. Quote from the statement says, it was agreed to continue contacts for the purpose of possible coordination of positions. The statement also adding the conversation between Vladimir Putin and Emmanuel Macron was substantive. The leaders of Russia and France spoke on the phone for the first time in almost 3 years, and according to reports that I see, the French conversation lasted for about 2 hours. And well, on one hand, we all understand that Ukraine and the Middle Eastern crisis were topics of discussions, but I believe timing of this conversation is not random, and it is connected with the recent escalation between Moscow and Baku, or between Russia and Azerbaijan. And what has started, I remind you, dear friends, that what has started as a criminal investigation in Russia's Yekaterinburg region in early June, in last several days, turned into state-level political crisis between two countries, between Russia and Azerbaijan, and the initiator of their escalation is Azerbaijani side. I reported about it this morning in the first update, and I will give you additional information on that. But one may ask her, okay, we can understand why two presidents spoke about Ukrainian crisis, about Iran and the Middle Eastern crisis, but what this conversation has to do with the escalation with Azerbaijan. And well, this is a big topic, dear friends. This is big and very complex, important topic. And let me take a few minutes to sort of share with you my take on the situation. And I believe during the conversation, two presidents, especially French President Macron, paid significant attention to escalation with Azerbaijan, and most likely he sort of asked Moscow for a green light so that France will go ahead with to deal with the Azerbaijani regime. I remind you, dear friends, not all members of our community may be familiar with the very difficult relationships that France has with Azerbaijan, and I will explain as in shortly as much as possible what I'm talking about. First of all, there is a huge and very influential diaspora, Armenian diaspora in France, which plays a significant role. And France now is actually supplying weapons to Armenia, right? After relatively recent military confrontation between Azerbaijan and Armenia. And these are, by the way, countries in Southern Caucasus, former Soviet republics, right? So that's the one factor. Another one is that according to reports, Azerbaijan play some significant role in recent Israeli attacks on Iran. So much so that there are plenty of reports on the internet that Iranians have found fuel tanks that were dropped by planes on the shores of Caspian Sea, and some experts are arguing that those planes most likely take off from Azerbaijan and dropped fuel tanks right before flying over Iran's territory, right? And France has some issues with that, and France is not happy about it. Also, we should keep in mind that France accused Azerbaijan for influencing unrest in French territories overseas, in Oceania, to be more precise. That's another reason for difficult relationships between the countries. Also, let me give you additional one, which is that currently Azerbaijan which is rich with the gas and oil, by the way, has a main partner in the business of energy, BP, British Petroleum, right? And France, which has also interest in energy field, understandably so, and many other countries do. All the countries do, actually. France is definitely not happy about it, and one should keep in mind, by the way, that maybe British royal family, British aristocracy is a main driving force behind globalism, and they are, and France is a part, right? French elites are also part of this globalist movement. There is internal conflict in the West between French elites and British elites that goes back in centuries, right? So I would not speak about that history now too much, but what I want to highlight is that France is competing with the UK in many areas of this world. In North Africa, for example, or at least tries to compete with UK. In North Africa, in the Middle East, and in South Caucasus. And France has a quite strong presence in Armenia, by the way, right? And wants to basically push aside, if possible, and even influence or provoke regime change in Azerbaijan so that they will be able to push out British energy companies, British BP, and well, gain the control over their resources there, right? Caspian resources that Azerbaijan is operating with. Also, in addition, by the way, one should keep in mind that France has historically quite a strong ties with Iran, right? During the revolution, Iran's future supreme leader went to Iran from France, right? He was in France. And the reports are that French elites still are maintaining quite a good relationships with their elites inside Iran. And France was one of the few countries, and still is one of the few countries in the collective West that dares to criticize actions of Israel against Iran and also in the Gaza Strip, right? So I give you quite a number of indicators why France is not happy. And in addition, by the way, let's remember difficult relationships between France and Turkey. And Azerbaijani leadership, by the way, Azerbaijani elites are sort of divided on two major groups. One is more focused on Turkey, and another one is more focused on Israel. So both these countries have quite a huge influence on Azerbaijan and Azerbaijani policies, right? And well, after presenting these many indicators to explain that, you know, France wants to play some role in Southern Caucasus region, France has some issues with Azerbaijan. I guess French elites, while observing escalation between Moscow and Azerbaijan, that was yet again escalated on a state level by Azerbaijani side. I guess French elites thought that, well, this is the time. This is the time to engage with Moscow and basically seek green light to go ahead and take some action against their opponents, let's say, that are in charge of Azerbaijan. And you might ask, well, okay, but what Moscow's position would be in that case? And you know what? I guess Moscow is kind of sick and tired with many neighboring countries that are constantly demanding something from Moscow while not really acting as a friendly or the strategic partner. And you know what? Moscow, during these conversations, maybe Russian president indicated that, maybe, by the way, this is just my guess, maybe he indicated that, you know what, you do you. You know, we will just stand aside and observe, right? And that can be seen by France as an indicator of green light from Moscow to go ahead and take care of Azerbaijani leadership. And also, by the way, if that is the case, I assume Moscow could demand even from France and its potential allies in this endeavor or enterprise to make sure that Georgia is secured and Georgia is not harmed by their actions that might take place either directly in Azerbaijan or between Azerbaijan and Armenia, or maybe both, right? Moscow probably would try to secure Georgia because of the many reasons, and one of those reasons are that lately, as I have reported many times, Moscow and Tbilisi, capital of Georgia, did manage to reach somewhat good working levels, right? And I think both sides would like to further improve the relationships despite their significant obstacles on this path. And so, yes, I think Moscow would demand Georgia's security, and when it comes to Azerbaijan, probably France will go ahead with whatever plans they have there. And one should also keep in mind, by the way, that it's not just France that is not happy with Azerbaijani leadership and its policies. As you can see, Moscow end up being in a political crisis with Azerbaijan because of the actions of Baku. Also, Armenia, for understandable reasons, have very difficult relationships with Baku. Nothing to be said about Iran, by the way, which is very much unhappy with Azerbaijan, especially because of the because Azerbaijan had become kind of proxy for Turkey and for Israel, right? And I remind you, dear friends, that there is a huge ethnic Azerbaijani population in Iran, and according to reports that I see, ethnic Azerbaijanis are most religious, most patriotic force there, right? And many leaders of Iran, including religious leaders, by the way, are ethnic Azerbaijanis, and they are not happy with the regime in Baku that prefers to have relationships with Turkey and Israel instead of cooperating with Iran. And also, I remind you that both countries, by the way, Iran and Azerbaijan, are predominantly Shiite Muslim countries, right? So very significant developments to be expected in the Southern Caucasus region, in Azerbaijan to be more precise, and in regards to Azerbaijan. And I'm quite sure, by the way, timing of today's phone conversation between French President Macron and Russian President Putin is absolutely not random. And I believe they discuss Ukraine, of course. They discuss recent US-Israeli war on Iran. But probably they devote quite significant time of these 2 hours that conversation lasted to situation in regards to Azerbaijan, right? So I think Aliyev, president of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, and his inner circle are quite nervous this evening when they receive information that Macron had conversation with Putin, because they probably think in the same way that France asked for a green light from Moscow to get engaged with that regime in Baku, and most likely they receive this green light. Let's see how will situation develop, but something serious is definitely in the preparations. That being said, dear friends, let me also share with you information in regards to this escalation between Moscow and Baku, between Russia and Azerbaijan, that yet again was provoked by Azerbaijan itself, because, as I said, what has started as a criminal investigation of Russian law enforcement officers in Yekaterinburg city quickly turned, and investigation was about criminal activity of the ethnic criminal gang in Yekaterinburg that happened to be Azerbaijani descent, but leadership of Azerbaijan, Republic of Azerbaijan, chose to talk this situation, to politicize this situation, and to escalate with Moscow on unprecedented scale, which is crazy if you think about. And even though Azerbaijani ambassador was summoned by Russian Foreign Ministry due to actions of Azerbaijan yesterday, when Sputnik, Azerbaijan media outlet that is connected with Russian Sputnik news agency, was raided by Azerbaijan law enforcement agencies, despite statements from Moscow that and the Kremlin, by the way, that Russia would like to see de-escalation of the situation, because Russia is not seeking politicization of this process. Well, Azerbaijani side did not really listen and further escalated today. I give you details on that. But first, there's this news that Azerbaijani ambassador receives note demanding release of Russian journalists. I remind you, dear friends, that yesterday Azerbaijani law enforcement agencies raided Sputnik Azerbaijan media outlet and arrested a number of journalists with some crazy fake allegations So verbal note was handed to Azerbaijan's ambassador to Moscow, Raham Mustafayev, demanding the immediate release of Russian journalists detained in Baku. This was stated in a statement by the Russian Foreign Ministry. And you think Baku listened to this warning or the demand of Moscow? No, they didn't. They absolutely didn't pay attention to it. And today, for example, 7 Sputnik Azerbaijan employees were detained, right, by Azerbaijani court. So Azerbaijani law enforcement officers detained 7 employees of Sputnik Azerbaijan, including editorial director Igor Kartavych and their editor-in-chief Evgeny Belousov. The Russia Сегодня media group reported. Media group press service reported also that arrests took place day before, emphasizing that it was connected with the trumped up charges, or basically fake charges, by the way, absolutely fake charges. As I already said, the head and editor-in-chief of Sputnik Azerbaijan was arrested, among other personnel of Sputnik Azerbaijan media outlets. And today, you think what Baku did, in addition, on top of that, they published video of humiliation of these arrested Russian citizens. Let me show you a video, by the way, and you will see what am I talking about. This is clearly intentional, is escalation on part of Azerbaijan, for sure. Just look at this video about it. Dramatic sound on the video. Just look at this. They made a movie basically humiliating Russian citizens, staff of media outlet, accusing them being a criminal gang, and there are all sorts of BS allegations, by the way. I would not even go into details because it's just a mockery of the justice that Azerbaijani law enforcement agencies are committing, for sure. And I want to also share with you these images, by the way, of the arrested individuals. Just take a look at these pictures, by the way, and you tell me if this is normal. And these are, by the way, as far as I can tell, staff of media outlet, journalists, right? Journalists, technical personnel, editor-in-chief of media outlet, and so on. Just look at these pictures. You see the faces of these people. They've been arrested and then tortured, basically, by Azerbaijani so-called law enforcement officers. Look at this. All of them being beaten, by the way, and tortured. All of them. It's a crime. What Azerbaijani so-called law enforcement agencies are doing and did is a crime. So, obviously, Moscow is not happy with these developments, and now you can see why would Moscow greenlight for France and whoever will support France to take action against the regime in Baku, in Azerbaijan, because this regime is definitely becoming a risk for the regional security, for sure. 100%, right? There can be no doubts about that. So let's continue on the news, dear friends. So that's what they did. That's what they did. And while Macron called and spoke with Russian president, you guess with whom Azerbaijani president had a discussion. I guess your thoughts are right, with Zelensky. So the head of the Kiev regime, Vladimir Zelensky, discussed with the president of Azerbaijan today, with Ilham Aliyev, support for the territorial integrity of the Ukraine and the situation around the relations between Baku and Moscow. And by the way, Zelensky thanked Azerbaijan for all the assistance that this Western-backed terrorist regime in Kiev is receiving from Azerbaijan. He openly thanked Baku for that. Baku that was pretending to be neutral, while in reality was not. So therefore, you know what? If France or any other country wants to do some stuff with this enhanced regime in Azerbaijan, let them go ahead and do it. No one gonna cry about these criminals that are in charge there in Baku. That's for sure. Not me, 100%. I mean, I can tell you that. And when it comes to future relationships between Moscow and Baku, I think Ilham Aliyev, Azerbaijani president, and his inner circle destroy relationships with Moscow for so much so that these relationships cannot be restored until there is a regime change in Azerbaijan. I don't think Russian president will, after these actions or these criminal actions of the Azerbaijani side in regards to Russian citizens, after this theatrical political escalation relationships with Russia on a political level, I don't think Russian president will have any intention to speak with Ilham Aliyev or to de-escalate anything. Probably he is just really sick and tired of these quasi-dictators or wannabe dictator elements in former Soviet republics that are acting if they are some sort of center of the universe, while they are not. So I think, well, Aliyev is finished, by the way, and soon, in relatively short time, probably we're going to see very significant changes in Southern Caucasus region. And let me show you on the map, by the way, area that I'm talking about. So this is Southern Caucasus, by the way. There is Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and two breakaway regions from Georgia. From Georgian side, breakaway regions. From Russian side, new republics, South Ossetia and Abkhazia, because Russia, after 2008 conflict that at the time Georgian President Mikhail Saakashvili provoked, Russia recognized independence of these republics, right? So this is Southern Caucasus, by the way. Azerbaijan is bordering, obviously, with Russia, Georgia, Armenia. Turkey, because there is a Nakhichevan autonomous region that is isolated from Azerbaijan and borders with Turkey and Iran. And so, and also very important stuff is that Azerbaijan is located on the shores of Caspian Sea, right? And they're very rich with their energy resources. So there we go. Something big is going to happen in Southern Caucasus, definitely in upcoming maybe months. And I think if French president was asking for a green light from Moscow, he probably received such a green light, at least indirectly. Hello everyone, I hope you find informative and useful this short clip from main news update, and if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary just about anything. It might help to deal with their algorithm and reach wider audience. And if you like my work in general and want to support to save this media project, you can assist through several ways. You can donate to this project through PayPal platform or Boosty, also with the crypto currencies, or you can subscribe to my Patreon page and page on Boosty, where I have quite a lot of extra content on regular basis. All the links are on this video in description box and in the pinned comment. And of course, many thanks to everyone who already helped and continues to support. Thank you.